Hello, welcome back. Tonight I will speak about a very beautiful book, Grimoire that I have written called Buer. And it speaks about, of course, Buer from the Ars Goetia, a book of King Solomon, that it is my inspiration book for my grimoires. And Buer is one of the spirits that King Solomon describes in the book of Ars Goetia, or the Lesser Key of Solomon. And so we'll say, well, the interest of Buer is a very high one. The interest of Buer, the persona of Buer, or who Buer represents, for and foremost, is of high position, high one, no? At the same time, we say, well, who is Buer? Who is Buer? What do we know about him? And so, well, we almost don't know. No, there is very little information about that. And so, well, the thematic of grimoire does touch on subjects that are almost unheard or only for a few known. So, well, it is something of more high value. No, so how we understand value, the value is always the element of a minus. So, Buer, this too has connection with Buer. So, well, even this minus does represent Buer. So, well, how that can be positive? How is that minus that Buer gives us a plus? Well, the minus is just a hand, it's just a start. Then we can add the plus, no? So it is nothing complicated, but why it is on the element of minus, there is some type of rejection, no? In the first step, that's how it felt for me, or how I know, or I try to understand the element of Buer, no? To say, well, everything is very exact with Buer. It is like even his name, Buer, is like two very strong, like big construction, like the two sides of a temple. It is very correct, it's very much there, it's very how it is, you know. So of course, in the element of how it is, we do have element of the minus. So, well, we have to accept the minus one way or another. So, well, some lessons of Buer are more direct like that, and it could make one a little upset and say, oh, I wish that was true, but it's not. So it wakes up something in your understanding that you didn't know, or you knew in a false way. So he does remove things that are false. And the way he does that is it through the minus sometimes, to make us understand. There's the element of the minus that goes after into the plus, into gaining something, no? If we speak about money or of something more. So, well, it can be anything, no? So, well, I wish to learn a new subject. And so, well, I start with the minus. I don't know. I have no idea about molecular biology. I really like nothing, almost zero. It's like, ooh, it's a big minus, no? But, well, if I start to work on it, if I start to study it, if I start to invest time, interest, you know, if I start to learn, read about it, I will transform it in a plus. So, I say, well, the plus has been a minus once, no? So, well, we have to understand that element of polarity as well. So it's like a scale. On a scale, you have the number 0 in the middle. On the left, you have the minus. On the right, you have the plus. And the balance is at the end of each plus and minus, no? So, well, if I put, or I take, no, the balance will move depending on the weight or of the value of that thing. It is how people thought and calculated before money existed. And so, well, they will measure the weight or measure the material, or they will use that type of scale that I said. So, well, how much is the weight? That's the value, and so on and so forth, no? And the scale, of course, speaks about an element of a 2-4 that I have seen in his name, Buer. And so when I started the book, 2 for me was, well, who is Buer? Now, how can I find new knowledge, or how can I understand for me, myself, a beautiful story, or how it happens naturally? So, well, first I have the thought, and then I work on it, or I develop the story, and then it becomes clear to me as well. That's the feeling. It's like I'm writing and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing actually. Okay, in this direction, I'm thinking to tell the story. That sounds nice. So I converse with myself, So, well, I have to make sure I'm doing the right thing, or it is the story that's how I want to say it, which does come very natural to me because I have my own way that I write. I have my own style, I know the steps. So my focus is more on the character, to make sure that I understand the character the best I can, so I have the right representation of that character in my book. So I take that very heart to heart, that the representation of him not only is correct and true, but does bring something interesting or new or helpful, or anything type of knowledge, So, well, knowledge is connected to wisdom. So for what is good the knowledge if we don't have the wisdom? It's like, well, the books just sit there. It's like, well, that's a representation of knowledge. But I say it is not the knowledge. It's just some books laying around, Knowledge is reading it, or not even that, maybe, What is knowledge, So some questions say, well, everything it's like said and understood, but when one has to define a thing, things do get a little harder. It is normal. And that's a part too that I like to work on, to say, well, what is the further meaning in that? How can I find from a root of the word, the way they do it in the linguistics? If I know the root of the word, which sometimes is only one letter or two letters, one can go as far as possible. Sometimes they are three, but it is the shorter part of that word that keeps or holds the truest and real meaning of that thing. So, well, names have changed, languages have transformed, but how can I take one word and find meaning, or understand that word, or understand that letter, or understand that number? And this is more like what Buer teaches. And so, well, one can meditate on the thematic of Buer, and one can exercise for himself or herself this element of questioning and answering, or you giving yourself the answers of something that you're looking for, that element, say, well, how can I get what I want? How can I get this to this? So, well, there are a few steps. So, while a book starts with the idea, I have to transfer that idea into a book, or it can be anything, it is an example. And how can I cross that river? And not only that, but for me to enjoy it as well and have a good result. It is in a way a travel. It is like a short or longer journey as well for me too when I write a book. It's like, okay, like there is a boat with the name Buer. Should I enter and sit in that boat and go on a voyage or not? Should I not? No? So, well, that's a beautiful choice. And so, well, yes, I will go on that voyage. And then I'm like, what should I do on that voyage? I say, well, I should maybe write a book. And I wrote the book. So it's like, okay. And then it's like, the book is finalized, published, but my interest still continues. I am still in that boat. I am still in that voyage, towards Buer, or towards element of Buer, or something that I have not seen yet, or something new, that does represent an element of new. Also, well, if I choose to travel to this country, I will see something that I have never seen before. It is worth my while. It is extraordinary. It is beautiful. It is appealing. It is interesting. It is so on and so forth, So, well, the element of the jungle, or the element of the mysterious, does often have very good results. And so, well, it is something beautiful, of course, The same as going on a boat through a river, So, well, it is experience that I experience that teaches me something, that gives me something beautiful. It should be seen at that level of the moment, what it offers exactly when you look around. That's the element of gratitude, no? The element of congratulation, no? I congratulate you, or the element of greeting as well, no? There is element of hello. So, when I started to write the book, no, so well, it was a decision. I said I want to write the book of Buer, a grimoire, no. And then I thought about the thematic, and it came to me in a few easy steps. First was, okay, how I saw Buer and how I describe him in this book as well, the things that he told me and the things that I have then included in the book. The way the book came, or the story in the book, is that dialogue between me and Buer on, if that's the correct story, if that's what I understood, that I should have put in the book of Buer, in the Grimoire of Buer. So it was very much like, it had to be on point. It had to be like 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 yes, no? So I worked on these 3 steps, concluded each step in the perfect way, in the best way, no? And then, and then the book was ready, it was finished. It is a beautiful grimoire. And in these recordings, I speak about Buer or other characters of my books, or different books that I have written. And I create a playlist where I talk about my characters that I have written in the book, or the book about them as well. And the more detailed aspect of Buer, I think, is the that refusal. We say, well, it is first a no. Buer is always a no. First is always no. And then, there's an element, okay, maybe yes, or exactly when yes. So he, it also like he has a softer side, which is very, very soft, no? Once, it's like he accepted you. We say, well, first is no. There's the first contact is no. It will be a no from Buer, always. That's how Buer is. So, it was more like a rejection in the beginning, and then it was definite yes, and that yes was very, very beautiful, no? It felt almost like a garden in paradise, and everything was understood, or the way I felt. At the same time, everything what was happening was so natural and so simple and so beautiful, being in a garden, no? And then how the scenes appear, it's like that's the way I transferred it in the book as well, as the journey that it happened for me as well. So, well, first it was a more serious, or some type of a feeling from Buer, or the way he represented himself, and then once it was yes, then the story starts in the book as well. It does create these elements of the magic. It is something magical as well, And at the same time, I have experienced, after I finished the book, I've experienced Buer once. I was walking outside and I see this beautiful tree moving, and I always, when I pass there, I always think of Buer, and just that tree, the way it moved, it just made me think of Buer. I felt his presence. It was just a moment like that. Sometimes I say one can feel Buer in a very soft breeze of that sunny day, through the leaves of a tree, It is that, it's almost like a sospiro. It's almost like you hear his name, but not really. It's only for your ears, This element is very private, one-to-one. And I was looking at the tree, and I was, seeing that movement, enjoying that tree like I always do, because I do love trees, and some of them are really, very beautiful. And then, I thought of Buer, and I felt him, or he was feeling me, that moment of me acknowledging that moment. And so, well, it is of course fantasy. So, well, maybe the tree never is like, well, how does the tree know? It's that element of like, does the tree know I admire him, or does the tree know that I look at him or I touch him, does he understand? Well, it's a good question. I wish I knew if the tree feels if I touch him, or there is a pleasure to the tree as well. Does the tree feel my touch? Is it or the way I look at him? If I look at the tree, if the tree feels that the same, like the moon. If I look at the moon, does the moon know I'm looking at her? No, it's like, yeah, probably not. But I'm looking at the moon. I see her, and people have connections like that. One can experience that. It's nothing. It's actually very beautiful, and I enjoy it. It's the same. Like if I look at a house of ants, a big one. I really like when I find big ones, the way I found when I was a child, and I will study that, and I will be like, oh God, I wonder how it looks inside. How are they living there? How there are little tunnels. You really want to see the inside, and I don't want to disturb them. I don't ever touch it, but I look and I imagine, and then sometimes you find some which are already a little broken by the weather, maybe, and then you can see the little chambers and the little rooms the ants have created through the sand. So, well, it is magnificent for me. That is very beautiful as well. So, they created a ants palace, no? So I say, well, Buer does work in that very fine element of nature. Buer is a master healer. That's what I know about him. And of course, as a master healer, he understands very well the element of the healing part of the nature, and that belief, or how we humans relate to nature, no? And the element of the healing. So well, it is a very beautiful gift that Buer carries, is the element of the healing. It is a master healer. And of course, it sounds very like important, but maybe we don't really understand the meaning of that, what it really truly means, no? So well, it is not necessarily something that Buer it's almost like a difference. We say, well, he has a capacity, but doesn't mean that he does it, no? Or that's another question, no? So, well, if it's a yes, one should not think it's always a yes. The yes is not infinite. It maybe comes a time when it's no. So, the polarity between yes or no, or the polarity between things are both important. There's the element of the balance that Buer teaches as well, the element of the balance of that scale that we were talking in the beginning, no? So, well, there are some correlation between things, even if we don't necessarily control the outcome. If we learn how to recognize the different patterns, say they are, they say, well, he has a very fine eye. Buer has a very fine observation skill. He is very observant. That's another very beautiful quality of him, and I will continue another recordings. This is part of a playlist that I always add new recordings, because it is definitely a pleasure for me to gain more knowledge about Buer and to understand him even more deeper, even in more beautiful, even in more interesting way, no? So I will continue definitely to talk about Buer, and thank you so much for listening. I will continue another time. Thank you. Bye.